There you guys, ran out of storage on my phone there, so now I gotta do part two. But where was I? So we get these pile of what I thought were rose hips in the wintertime there, and I'm really stoked about it because I love rose hips. And so I bring them inside and everything, and put them up above the microwave in the oven there, and waiting for them to dry out and stuff. And Jamie had woken up out of her sleep and came marching up to me, and she was still like half asleep, like she was like peering through just barely the cracks of her eyes, and she was like, "Hawthorn berries." And I'm like, "What?" And she was like, "Not rose hips." And I'm like, "What?" And she was like, "They're not rose hips, they're hawthorn berries." And I'm like, "What's a hawthorn berry?" And she was like, I don't know, but that's what they call them apparently, is hawthorn berries." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, whatever." So I sit down and I'm like, "Okay, let's research this." So I get on the almighty Google. Dude, hawthorn berries are real, and they're here, and they look just like rose hips. And I'm like, "No, no way, no way." So I get up and I bite into one of them. And what you can tell the difference between hawthorn berries and rose hips is the hawthorn berries have a single seed, a big, like a cherry seed, basically in the center of them. And I bit in and I bit that seed, and I'm like, "These aren't rose hips," and stuff. And I looked it up and everything. Yeah, did the Google search on image search hawthorn berries. And I'm like, dude, every hair on my body stood up at that point right there, and I'm like, how do you explain that? Like, how do you explain that? Because what is unraveling here in front of my eyes is crazy, absolutely crazy. Like this goes far out of the box, way far out of the box. And how do you introduce this to the box? How do you show people? How do you prove to people that this is actually happening in the moment and stuff? And so, I mean, I've been taking notes. I have 3 notebooks of every detail that's happened and stuff, and of course theories and other things where time references are noted in every encounter. Almost every encounter, there's some points in the notebooks where I got a little lazy and things were happening and I just didn't feel like writing, and so there's some spots that are missing in the notebook that are video cataloged at least and stuff, so we know what was still happening then, but I couldn't quote the time directly or the thought process directly of what was going through our minds and stuff. So a lot of that, well, not a lot of it, there's really just a few encounters that aren't cataloged currently, but it the mind speak keeps coming up. It keeps coming up, and it keeps getting backed by more and more stuff on the table and stuff. Like a few months ago and stuff, I was talking to my mom, and I'm like, "Hey, do you think you can reach out and possibly see where they are, because we haven't seen them for a long while now. I'm starting to get worried." And she's, "Yeah, sure, okay." And then she just gets one word in reply. She says, "Traveling." I'm like, "Okay, but where are they going? What are they doing and stuff?" And she just says, "Traveling." That's all they say, "traveling." I'm like, "Okay." And then, maybe a month or so, maybe 2 months go by, and I reach out to my mom again. I'm like, "They can't be traveling this long, could they? I mean, where are they going right now? I mean, this doesn't seem like the time of year for migration. I feel like the end of the year would be the time for migration. I feel like they should be here, you know, several weeks ago, considering the weather up here, and things are about ready to bloom. Now they are bloomed. The mushrooms are already up. They've been up for several weeks. Flowers are blooming. Wild raspberries and wild strawberries are blooming and starting to fruit. I mean, things are popping up here, and things are getting ready to be picked. So and by this time last year, we were having daily contact too. So I'm like, what gives? Where are they? And I reached out to my mom again. I was like, you know, can you check in with them again? And she said that they're still traveling. And I'm like, that's got to be quite the distance. Where would they want to go this time of year? Because I'm unfamiliar with the southern states and what is growing this time of year. Possibly there's a fruit source or a fish source or some sort of food source that would draw them to that area from a good distance away. Um, and the amount of time that they're able to cross, pretty rugged terrain is substantially greater than ours. That'd be something, kind of similar to a horseback, I imagine. Would be able to cover that sort of terrain in that sort of time. So it's like, given the time of a horseback ride between here and the next great food source, which would be like, a river or the mouth of a river into the ocean, or even and stuff, like, which direction would they go? I mean, we have way north, we have caribou herds. We got way far south, we've got buffalo herds. And off, way to the west, we've got the ocean, which is an unlimited supply, of course. We have off to the east, we have the plains, where there's plenty to eat there too, but more so in um, I don't know really though, because the plains are really open. They're really open, so they'd be like, this tall black figure in a ocean of white grass. It doesn't seem like it would be uh, it would seem like an unnecessary risk for me, standing in their shoes per se. But and then it was like sometime later that I was going through something myself, and I decided to make a big life decision that a lot of things in my life needed to be dropped. I needed to kind of hit the reset button and start over again. And I'm young enough now that I'm able to do that, luckily. So I decided to, quit vaping, and my gut health has been improving substantially. My back, it seems to be improving. There are times where I have wonderful days, and there are times where I really hurt. But it seems more so that I'm having good days rather than bad days lately. And I think a lot of it has to do with how I've been treating myself, basically. And so I started, turning around, trying to turn over a new leaf, and making these changes in my life to start doing what I'm supposed to be doing, taking care of myself. And how am I to take care of other people if I can't take care of myself, was the biggest question that I asked myself there. So I started working on myself, and I'm sitting there, I'm staring at myself in the bathroom mirror. I'm like, you can do this. It's one of those situations where, you're kind of talking to yourself, trying to motivate yourself a bit. Like, I've gone through worse. I've gone through worse. This, this ain't gonna be the end. Everything is temporary and stuff. Put it behind you. Move on. Start living the way that you see fit right now. And the way that I see fit is that I needed to, well, first off, I gotta work on getting rid of the scars now. But it's also one of those things too where it's like I was vaping hard, very, very, very hard. Yeah, like waking up in the middle of the night, literally in the middle of the night, having it still in my hand, just taking a hit, getting that nicotine rush and passing back out. Wake up again, do it again. First step in fixing a problem is identifying that you have one, and I started seeing it as a problem. It's getting way too expensive, especially for these disposable cheapos and stuff. And every time I get myself one of these real nice vapes and everything that, is one of my mods and they're cool, they're these chimney stacks or a diesel muffler. And I'd start hitting that thing, and eventually it'd fall out of my pocket and explode on the concrete, and there's another $120 down the drain right there. When the juice itself costs just as much as it did for a disposable vape. So I was like, getting to that point, why do I keep throwing all this money away? So I decided to change. But getting myself off of nicotine is definitely one of the hardest things that I have taken on as I'm sitting here holding a cigar. But I'm working on it, trying to drop that ball and chain right now, and makes it really hard because it's like, you look around you and everybody's doing it, you see the temptation all around you, but what you have to realize is that's just the box. The box is just, it's a torment for those who swim against the sharks. We all grow up, we all are raised with teeth. Some of us are raised to use them. Some of us take our teeth out. I don't think you should take your teeth out, but swimming against the sharks, you're going to need something to defend yourself with. And that's why we were given the truth. Because no matter how many people comment that what I'm doing is in vain, or ridiculous, or it's just birds, everybody has their opinion. Because I would like to, it was like this argument I actually had with this college student, actually. Because he, coming out of college with all of his knowledge and all of his how-to and know-whats, and, come up and tried telling me, how life is out in the woods. And just had all these crazy ideas and stuff about how to or how the woods actually operates, and how small towns need to operate, and the Second Amendment needs to be abolished, and all this nonsense and stuff. I mean, you're trying to cancel a way of life that's a literal way of life for most people out here. Actually, everybody out here hunts. And then I turned around and I started telling him how college was and stuff. And he's sitting there and he's, like, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, because first you go in or anything, and you pull your book out and you sit down in the class and you listen to the professor tell you, what you should be doing and how you should be thinking, and the only way to pass this class is to think the way the professor thinks and stuff. And he's sitting there going like, what? And I'm like, and then you go to lunch and you find your table and you sit down in the cafeteria and stuff away from everybody else and stuff, because you're not socially accepted by people because you think outside the box while everybody else is there to learn about the box and stuff. Therefore, you're the outcast and you're the weird one and stuff. So nobody wants to sit there and eat with you. And he's like, I'm like getting super detailed into it, and he's just sitting there going like, this guy is wrong about everything and stuff. And then he was like, where'd you go to college? I'm like, I didn't. And he was like, okay, well, how do you know all this stuff about college? I'm like, I'm wondering, have you ever been in the woods? And he was like, and I'm like, I'm wondering the same thing. you know, it's goofy. It's so goofy. It's because everybody's getting their information from the box, from the social media, from the TV, from one of the walls of containment. It's just a jail cell, and the sentence is temporary for all of us. Some of us are trying to figure out how to make this sentence permanent. It's like the Gilligan's Island episode and stuff, where the volcano on the island is about ready to explode and everything, and everybody's gonna kick it, and there's just no hope left. So everybody's saying their goodbyes to each other. Marianne's going around cooking pies for everybody, and the skipper and Gilligan and going around, and they're having heart to hearts with everybody and leveling with everybody. Everybody's saying their goodbyes and treating each other the way that we always have been meant to. And that was the whole purpose of that episode. And that goes to the Howells in their little bungalow that they've got and everything, and they're packing up all their suitcases of money and stuff, and they're writing out their will of where the money's gonna go and stuff, and what charity it's gonna go to, and what foundation and college and stuff like that. And then Mr. Howell is like, there's just one more thing though, to see if there is just a way that we can't take it with us. And it's part of the human condition. The value of what you are on this earth is not given by the dollar sign. The value of who you are on this earth and what you do is weighed and measured by the good works that you do. How often are you going to deny yourself for the needs of another? How often are you going to pick up your cross? There are some who live with that cross on their shoulders, and they are the most rugged people out there. Because swimming against sharks gives you plenty of scars. Plenty of scars. And so it is my job to try and coach and usher people into understanding understanding what Christ has done for us because of what waits for us in the end. And there's one argument I was given and stuff, that the fact that we are Christians is a given fact that we are greedy. At first, I kind of took offense to it, and I'm sure there's a lot of you that will. But if you think about it, he kind of had a point there. Now, from what he experienced, it was more of the holier than thou type people, those who use scripture to downcast others, which is wrong, very wrong. But these were the people that he was surrounded by. And so his idea of Christians was a very sour one, unfortunately. I might have to take care of this guy. But because of this perception, go away, go away, go away, go away. It had kind of an offense to me at first, but when I really started thinking about it, I was like, he might be onto something there, because we, as Christians, we already know we're sinners. We're sinners. We understand we have a sickness that is in our DNA to sin, to act as our own God, which is the biggest battle it's the biggest battle within ourselves and stuff. That's why they say the biggest battle we have is between the spirit and the flesh and stuff, is because the flesh wants to dictate everything. The flesh craves things. The flesh sins. Where the spirit, your conscience, is going, dude, don't do that. Come on, man. Stop. What are you doing? Knock it off. You're looking at yourself in the mirror going, why? I know I ain't the only one that's been there. But this point he had, he's like, the only reason why you want to go to heaven is because you're greedy. And then he further went to say, you think you're better than the rest of us. No. That is your opinion. That's your opinion of me. But that's just fine. And then, with him saying, you're only you only go into heaven because you're greedy and stuff. Well, the way that I see it is my sinful nature. You might be right about that. I guess that's just another one of the sins that's been forgiven. Because if you come to the Father with the sins that you've committed, if you come to Jesus, that's what he is for. That's what he has done. And so, yeah, he might be right about that in a sense. But I don't feel greedy. I feel that I am absolutely deserving of hell. That everybody is. But I'm also very thankful for what my Lord has done for me, and what he has done for many of you, and for whoever decides to come to him and understand that when he rose, he said, when he rose, he conquered the last thing, the last line of defense that Satan had. His last grip on this world was death. And he conquered it. The fear of death, the fear of nothing, the fear of hell, is all from Satan, and he controls the box. The spiritual battle that we have that's constantly unraveling around us is like, I was talking to my mom earlier today actually about this and stuff, because she's got a lot that she's battling right now. A lot. And it gave me the perception that she is walking through not just a bullet storm in this war, but she's walking through artillery fire right now. She's walking through artillery rain, and it is raining. All I can do is pray for her and offer what knowledge is given to me in the time of need. And it just keeps coming back to me. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And it gives you this perception, just like Simon Peter out on the ocean, how terrible the ocean was, choppy waves and everything, and they see Jesus walking upon the water, and they think he's a spirit of some sort, and they're panicking. They're like, this is a spirit, we're in trouble, where's our Lord? And Jesus calls out to them, and they're like, Lord, if that's you, tell me to walk on the water then. If that is you, tell me to get out of this boat. He said, come to me. And Peter stepped out of the boat and started walking to him. And when he was walking to him, he had his eyes on Jesus. He was walking straight to him. He had his eyes on Jesus. The same Jesus who said, follow me. For I am the way, the truth, and the light. In this terrible storm, just darkness everywhere, fear everywhere, chaos everywhere, he kept his eyes on Jesus, and he walked to him through it. But the second he took his eyes off and started looking around, looking at the artillery fire, looking at the chaos, looking at everything that's wrong in life, he started sinking. And he called for God. He said, Jesus, save me, save me. I'm sinking, save me. He pulls him out of the water, pulls him into the boat, and he tells the storm to be still, and the oceans went still, and the wind stopped, and the clouds broke. And they said, what manner of man is this that can control the weather itself? And all Peter could say was, don't let me go. The ultimate test of faith. Everything is a test of faith. You step out your door every morning, you work your 9 to 5. It's a test of faith if you're even going to make it to work. You don't even realize it. You think you're just going to work. I'm going to work. I do this every day. I'm going down the road, 75 miles an hour, trying to cruise, get to Coeur d'Alene on time and stuff. Going 75 miles an hour in the dark in the wintertime. Why was I doing that? Because I had the faith. I was going to get to work on time. I'm going to get to work on time. You don't think about these things. You don't think about the danger, the chaos, because you're focused. You're not looking at what's around you. Holy crap, I'm going fast. I should probably slow down. Because we're always so impatient. Everything is now, 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 now. Has to be now, 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 now. Where God says, in due time. We don't like to hear that. We don't like to hear that at all. In due time, what does that mean, man? When it's necessary. When it fits into the plan. The way that the puzzle piece is supposed to fit. Because the big picture requires this little puzzle piece to fit in the perfect place. Otherwise, the whole picture is thrown off. The whole plan is run amok. So, in due time. And that lesson had a lot to play here too. In that time of waiting for them, where, we went a couple of months there for waiting for them. A couple of months. I didn't think they were coming back. I'm like, did I do something? Am I? Is it my sinful nature that I'm dropping? Is it, like, what is going on? Because I was going through a very, very difficult battle with sin there, that I knew what was resonating off of me was not good. And so I started going to church. I picked up my Bible. I put down the vape. I put down other things too. That's between me and the old man. And I started seeing things more clearly again. And then I had a mind speak session when I was just staring at myself in that bathroom. And it was like a voice just popped into my head, just like what everybody describes. Like, just popped into your head. Said, "Are you done with your sin yet?" I said, I'm looking at myself in the mirror going, did I just hear that? Yeah. And I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and I hear, good. We'll see you soon. Okay. So I called up my mom and I was like, okay, I've only had images pop into my head, and that's the way that I've been able to do mind speak, and it's very, very, very few times does it happen. Very, very, very few times. And I paint them. I've got a collection of paintings of these images that I've been given and stuff. Because I'm really not that good an artist, you guys. I'm kind of sloppy. I'm still learning, I learn as I go. That's the type of person I am. And I called up my mom and I told her what I had said, and she was like, I just got chills. Like, whoa. As I told my mom what I was going through and what I was dropping and stuff. And of course, she, being the mother that she is, she was so supportive of me. And is so happy to see me turning over this new leaf and stuff. So I told my mom what had happened. She's like, I just got chills and everything. Like, I'm gonna try mind speak tonight and stuff, and I'm gonna see if she said, I'm gonna see if I can talk to them too. And I said, okay. And she she had said something about them still traveling, but they were on their way back, basically. And I'm like, really? Okay, so any day now then. And then a few days later, we had activity pop up on the table, and I'm like, thing is no matter the evidence I collect here, the tracks I've casted, the hair samples I've collected, the Mindspeak sessions that are backed up with gifts on the table, the literature that's left behind, no matter how much evidence I come up with, it will never be enough. Even if I were able to pull all these videos off of my security footage and stuff, because I know for a fact I have hours of them recorded on that video camera, on these security cameras that are around here, because they've literally walked in front of every one of them. Even if I was to post those, it will never be good enough, because it doesn't pertain to the box. It doesn't pertain to society. In fact, it threatens society financially. Because one of the great walls of the box is money. And money dictates everything. Type of food that you eat, type of medicine that you get, what house you get, what car you get, how far you're able to travel, what your leisures, your hobbies are. It dictates everything. The programs on the TV. You can do your research, but we don't want to hear anything about human DNA correlating with these things, is what they say. They've made the mistake once. And for teams of legitimate scientists and legitimate psychiatrists, lawyers, judges, legitimate people from society with real weight behind their name, claiming the same thing that is taking place here on my table. And they're brushed under the rug. The same as like the Human Genome Project. There's a team that you guys can look up. Gosh, I forgot the name of the scientist that did that research on that DNA, but they're coming to find out that they're more related to us than anything else. But that can't happen. The box won't allow it, because it threatens one of the walls of the box. It threatens finances, your money. How does it do that? Well, what do you wipe your butt with? Toilet paper. Paper comes from trees, comes from logging. Therefore, if you are to threaten the logging industry, you threaten everything. It's what builds the hospitals. It's what builds the White House. It's what builds all of these capitals. It's what builds industry. It's what expands us. Trees are the greatest resource that we have aside from water. And if you control the water, you control everything too. Therefore, if you want to make sure that nobody gets spiritually enlightened, starts thinking outside of the box, you can taint the water in such a way to keep your pituitary gland closed by what's that damn chemical? By putting fluoride in it. And put fluoride in everything. Make it to where it's a requirement for your health. Get you thinking that. Everybody 10 years ago thought fluoride was wonderful for you. That it fixes your teeth, keeps everything clean, disinfects everything. They had no idea what it was doing to the gland just between their eyes. By literally crystallizing it. That doesn't allow it to open. That doesn't allow you to basically think outside the box. Keeps you down to a point to where you are so docile and so controllable that all you have to do is look at your phone. And that's all you gotta do all day. Shoot, you can even make money doing this. There's so much more to life than what this box has to offer, but unfortunately for us, this box is the testing grounds. We are literally walking through hell on earth. We could also literally be walking on heaven on earth. It all depends on how you speak it, really. You see these people with just absolute luck, and they're always happy-go-lucky because they don't have a care in the world. They don't have a problem to deal with. It seems like anything that comes up to stub their toe, they're just, they brush it off and they keep marching. Like, got a stub toe, but that's all right. It's not hindering me. I'm still having fun. A lot of people are threatened by these people because they're so consumed by the box, by the pit that they've fallen in of depression and stuff, that they see these people without problems and they immediately become jealous. Because why isn't my life like that? Maybe if you speak it into existence. Well, I think I've spoken enough today. And for those of you who have sat through part 1 and part 2, thank you so much for joining me today, because it's been a pleasure just sitting here and talking, even to myself. You know, it helps me process, figure out what I'm going to do next and stuff. And what I am going to do next, I don't think is going to be much different from what I've been doing. I think what we are planning for, though, is to do another feast. So we're going to see what's going on and fill a tote full of some fruit and some bread and stuff like that, just like we did last year, as a big thank you for them leaving a track for us and everything to cast. That happened to be the most detailed casting I've ever seen in my life, because you can literally see all of the dermal ridges of all the different foot pads, and it's just wow. So I think we're kind of leaning more towards that direction for our next interaction with them. See if they'll drop by and have a feast with us again. So God bless you guys, and stay squatchy.